Welcome to NICU Stories. Hey, my NICU Story followers, welcome back. We have an awesome edition on today. Our episode is featuring our wonderful guest from the UK. We have Preemie Dad UK, and I am so excited to have him on today. Carl, how are you?
Yeah, I'm very well, thank you. Thanks for having me on.
Thank you so much for joining us. So I am so excited to have you on. It's such a pleasure to have the dads tell their stories, because a lot of times we always hear about the NICU from the mom side. So I am so excited to have you on, and to have you on from a dad's perspective from another country. So go ahead and tell us all about your story and your beautiful journey, your NICU journey with your family.
Cool, yeah. So yeah, as you mentioned, I'm Carl. I'm from the UK, and I run a blog called premdad.co.uk, which I started as a way of sort of documenting the journey that I went on as a father of twins that were born prematurely. So to set the scene, I guess, my wife went into labour 13 weeks early, and our sons were born sort of quite quickly after that. So it was within about 4 or 5 hours. And yeah, we had two baby boys that weighed £2.6 each.
Ooh.
And they were, yeah, so they were very ill, and they needed to be on ventilators and in incubators for quite some time. They had to move to a city about an hour away from where we live, and then after a couple of weeks they were moved back to our hometown hospital, and they stayed there for another 7 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I think the reason that I wanted to talk about my experience is that I found that although a lot of the attention is on the mum, rightly so, I just felt that there wasn't really much of a voice for dads and how it impacts the fathers who are sort of going on that journey as well. So I was a little bit apprehensive, but I started to sort of write about my experience. I'm a writer for my job, and I do enjoy writing, and that's kind of the way I express myself. So it kind of made sense for me to be able to do that as more of an outlet for myself, really. But since I've started doing it, I've had quite a lot of feedback from people that I do know who didn't really understand what I went through at that time, but also from a lot of people who've been through similar situations and afraid to talk about it, or have not been able to find that voice, and they've said that reading my words has really helped to them, which is kind of reassuring and quite heartwarming, I suppose. So yeah, I guess that's where the journey started for me. The boys they're doing well now. They're just coming up to their second birthday, so that will be in a couple of months. Yeah. So all things considered, they're doing well, and they're hitting the milestones they should be for their corrected age, and they've got no long-lasting health effects from what they went through, really, which is a little bit of a miracle in itself. I think they were both born with sort of heart murmurs, and one of the boys had quite a significant brain bleed at birth as well, which we were told would very likely hamper his development in later life. So it was, that was quite a devastating time, really, on top of what was already a difficult time. So to watch him now, you wouldn't really know that anything like that had happened. So it's really nice that he's been able to overcome that so far.
Wow, that's amazing. So tell me about when she was going into premature labor, like what were your thoughts?
Well, to be honest, I probably a little bit naively didn't really have much knowledge of premature birth, and I didn't think that you could have a baby that early. I know that might sound silly now, but so it was kind of panicked, and she said, "I think my waters have broken." I was kind of, well, that can't be true because it's not time. Yeah, exactly. But we went to the hospital to get checked out, and yeah, from there it was a bit of a blur, really. They said, yes, the waters have gone, you are in labour, and within, like I said, within a few hours, we had 2 little boys, and yeah, it was kind of a bit of a blur. It was quite worrying, quite stressful, not really understanding what was going on and how I could help. And seeing my wife go through something so traumatic and not really being able to do much about it.
Really? So when they said she was going into premature labor and now the babies are here, like seeing them so tiny, because I know they had to be extremely tiny, that 2 pounds. What were your reactions?
Yeah.
What were your thoughts?
It was strange because obviously I was immediately in love with them, and I just wanted to hold them and kind of make sure everything was going to be okay. But within seconds they were taken away and sort of had tubes put in and wires and whisked off to another room. So I never really had the chance. But to be honest, all I could think was that I didn't know if I'd see them again alive. Really, I thought they're too small to survive because I've never seen a baby so small. So that was kind of the overriding feeling. I didn't want to admit it, but looking back, that is how I felt. And yeah, I guess, like I say, I'm thankful that it didn't turn out that way, and that they both did recover and managed to be discharged.
That's such a real feeling and a real thought, because you're like, oh my God, these babies are tiny. At this
Yeah,
size, they're supposed to still be in the womb, because that's where they're getting their nutrients. That's where they're getting their, comfort, their growth. And it's like now they're out in the elements when they're supposed to be in this tiny cocoon. So that's a
yeah,
very real statement, and just a real display of, some of the thoughts that parents have that don't usually talk about it, because you see your child and a part of you is like, are they gonna make it? Like, I don't know. And you have that fear that they just might not make it. So I'm
yeah,
glad that you shed some light, because some parents probably do think that but never really share, like, that's a fear for NICU parents, that we see our child so extremely tiny and they're supposed to be still in utero, but here they're out in the world in the elements, and now we're relying on people to get them through a process that they should be in their mother's womb to go through. So I'm glad you mentioned that. So how?
yeah.
Mhm.
No, I was just going to say that, like you say, it was a strange sensation once we saw the boys in the hospital and they were in their incubators. It was almost as if we had to try and bond with them because they were here, but at the same time, the doctors were trying to simulate them still being in utero. So it was a kind of a bit of a catch-22, really. We didn't want to disturb them too much, but also we knew that we had to make that bond and help them to understand that we were their parents, I guess.
Right, right. And then did you guys do like kangaroo in the UK? Do they have like the kangaroo? So how was that? Because that's a very important part of the process and part of their growth and healing and
Yes,
development.
yes, that's right. So I think the boys were about 6 days old when we were first able to hold them. So it was what felt like a long wait, but
Yeah.
it was definitely a yeah, the highlight of the experience, I think, was when I held both boys.
You
Obviously, I
held
held
them
them
both?
both separately,
Oh,
but I
okay.
held
I
them
was like,
both at the same
wow.
time. Yeah, I held them both at the same time. I think the next day, and that was amazing. Just felt like, yeah, I was finally able to get that connection with them, I guess.
Um, so what took so long for you to be able to hold her? My daughter, I wasn't able to hold her until she was about 2 weeks old. And the
Wow.
reason why for her was because she ended up getting the necrotitis enterocolitis, the infection in the intestines. So
Yeah.
they were saying because she was only 1 pound 6 ounces when she was born, they said she was just way too fragile. Well, they thought she was way too fragile for me to pick her up. So the 2 weeks was long. So I know the 6 days was very long to be able to hold your
Yeah.
baby. So what was the reason that they said you couldn't? Because they were a little further, a little heavier in weight. So what were they
Yeah, I
saying?
think it was just that the sort of the measurements were kind of fluctuating quite heavily. One of them had a really quick heartbeat and was yeah, they were both under the phototherapy lights as well, for
Oh,
jaundice.
yeah, yeah,
So
yeah.
there was that to contend with, and one of our sons did have a small infection as well. So I think that sort of hampered him being able to come out of the incubator for a
Mm-hmm.
little bit as well. So yeah, I think it was just a combination of reasons, really. But like I said, when that time did come, it kind of made it worth the wait, I guess.
Now, how did you feel the NICU offered support for you as well? Because you find a lot of times the support is focused on the mom, but did you feel like they gave you as a dad support? Did you feel like you were supported, or were your well-being even thought of?
Um, it depends really. Sometimes I felt like the nurses or the doctors did include me, and they were there for me as well, and we'd have a bit of a laugh sometimes, or other times they'd know that I needed a bit of space. But I think most of the time it was aimed towards the mum, trying to encourage my wife to sort of express, to give the boys breast milk, giving her all sorts of information on her own recovery as well. So I did often feel as though I was a bystander, and trying to I had to actively seek out information and how I could sort of cope with what was going on as well.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that is probably one of the reasons that, like I said, I started my blog and started writing about my experience, because I feel as though, you know, understandably the focus is on the mother, but it is a hard experience for dads as well. So I wanted to be able to give that voice, and I guess some kind of reassurance to other people that go through similar situations, that your thoughts and feelings are valid, and you should be listened to and should be able to seek help.
Right, right, right. And now that you've started to have this voice, do you feel like you're able to help other dads? Like, have you been able to reach out to other dads in the NICU? Like, what are some things that you've done to help other dads feel like they're important too, and how they're feeling during this situation is?
Yes, definitely. So, like I said, I've had like quite a lot of messages from different people, often that I don't know, who've come across my writing and found it helpful, and being able to relate to what I'm talking about. A couple of weeks back, I did actually receive a message on my Instagram account from a dad here in the UK who was currently in the NICU with his son, and he said, "Hi, I just wanted to let you know that I've been reading your blog, bit by bit, and
I
while
love
I'm in the
it.
NICU, and it's really helping me. Your writing really helps." So that was a really nice message to receive, because, like I said, the initial reason really was for me to get my thoughts and feelings out of myself. But the
Right,
fact that
right.
it's able to help somebody else is really, really nice, and makes it worthwhile, I think.
What were some of your thoughts and feelings during this process, like during this whole NICU journey?
Yeah, I guess mainly it was stress, and concern. I felt a little bit like, almost had to. It's strange that I went into the hospital one night in love with my wife, and then a few hours later, I had to divide that love between three people instead of just one. So I had two sons, and I didn't really know how to split myself between the three of them.
That's
So
good.
I had to obviously be there for my wife, who'd been through something very traumatic, but I also needed to visit my sons and be by their side, and be their dad as well. And it was really difficult for me to be able to balance those three things, or two things, I suppose, at once. Um, but I think really it was just the situation of seeing them in that condition, and the ups and downs, the health problems, the scares. It was really just quite a stressful experience. Um,
Hmm.
I think another key thing was when I had to go back to work. So the boys were still in the hospital when I went back to work, and I kind of felt almost as if I was letting them down and my wife down by leaving them in the hospital all day. And I'd obviously go and visit them in the morning before I went to work, and then I'd try and work from home where possible, and go up on my lunch break, and then go straight to the hospital after work as well, and,
Hmm.
and spend as long there as I could. But yeah, you almost feel as though you're just leaving. I was just leaving my wife to sort of deal with the emotional strain while I went off. But obviously, I had no choice really. I had to go to work.
Right, right, right. How did you? I think I love that you mentioned, because I don't think anybody thinks about the fact that you have to adjust now on your emotions. The fact that you said that you now had to love three people when you were just loving just your wife. I'm like, wow, what a thought. Because I don't think people think too much about that when you bring children into the world. And to think that on top of now I also have to set that feeling aside and try to navigate, my emotions to this adjustment to these new people in my life now. But in that I also have to love and care for and nurture, but also love and care and nurture my wife. But I also have to love and care and nurture them while they're in the NICU, while my wife just experienced this traumatic experience. Did you feel like that was too much weight on you? And how were you able to cope and navigate it without falling to like a deep depression? Or I know you said that you journaled, but what were some of the things that help you motivate yourself to get through this and still be a dad and still be a loving husband?
I think for a lot of the time, I was almost on autopilot, really. So
Yeah.
I kind of just had to grit my teeth and get on with it. And I kind of said to myself that, as the father and the husband of the family, I had to be the strong one and try and be there for the family and just do anything that it would take to get through the experience. Like I said, I did find it very stressful. I was really tired and emotional, but it really kind of caught up with me, I think, after the boys had came home. So it almost felt when they were finally able to come home, it almost felt as if we became parents again. And now they were in the real world, and that's really when I think it all caught up with me a little bit. All the stress and the strain of what we've been through, the tiredness, and yeah, I did become quite I suppose depressed is the word. At that point, I think probably a combination of not much sleep
Yeah.
at home and yeah, a sort of build up of all the emotions that had happened in that few weeks, I guess, just kind of came to a head, and that's what affected me. But I think while we were going through the experience, I kind of just lived it in the moment and pushed through without really thinking about it too deeply. Otherwise, I don't think I would have got through it.
I know. I think I agree with you when you say you're on autopilot. I feel like every parent in a NICU kind of feels the same way and can identify with those thoughts. Because now I feel like talking about it more and discussing it more with other NICU parents, I'm like, I think I was on autopilot too. Because you wonder how you were able to get through the ups and downs and the highs and the lows of the NICU, and it's literally like you're on autopilot and you have tunnel vision because like the only thing you could think about is getting my children out of this NICU, right?
Yeah.
How were you a support to your wife? Like, did you feel like you had to set your feelings aside and whatever you were going through and just put you aside to be a comfort and a support to your wife? Did you ever feel that you had to do that?
Yeah, I think a little bit. It was really that it was a new experience for both of us, but I felt that at the time, I felt obviously she'd gone through that trauma, so I had to be strong for her as well as myself. So I did try to help out with everything that I could. So getting the expressing equipment ready and that kind of thing for her. But yeah, I think even in those days it was quite tense. I think it's difficult to say, but our relationship probably did suffer during those times, and even when the boys first came home, it's like I said, it's divided loyalties a little bit, and the stress of no sleep, the concern, and obviously we both wanted the boys to be well and to be able to come home, but sometimes we can express ourselves differently and we don't always agree on the best course of action. So I think, yeah, there was a little bit of strain there, but we knew that we'd been through a lot even before the boys were conceived even. So we knew that we were strong enough to get through it and we could, have each other's back. But at the time, it does have a big impact. But I'd like to think she would say I was a helpful and supportive husband at the time. I hope so.
I'm pretty sure you were. And a lot of people don't think about the fact that the NICU does put a lot of strain on your marriage. It puts a lot of strain on your household, your relationships. And it's not just, you as an individual, it's you as a unit that's, the strain of the processes on there. Now, did they offer any sort of like therapy or support to you at the NICU in the UK?
Yes, we in the first hospital we were in. After about a week, we were able to access some counselling,
Mm-hmm.
which I think did really help us. So they had a professional sort of therapist who just sat down and listened to us talk about what we've been through, and it was the first time we'd spoken about it to anyone or even each other, I think, and just getting off our chests really helped us to kind of accept it had happened, really, I think.
Mm-hmm.
So that was kind of helpful, and we were able to understand at that point that this is a rare thing for somebody to go through, and it can affect you deeply. So the feelings and emotions we had weren't out of the ordinary for the situation. It was just just trying to understand and accept that, I guess.
Right, right.
I think if we had have stayed at that hospital longer, we would have been able to get some further sessions. But we did move back to our hometown, so we didn't have access to that after that point. But like I said, in our local hospital, a lot of the nurses were almost acted as secondary therapists, I guess. Sometimes they would just be there to talk to us and reassure us, I think. So that also helped.
Mm-hmm.
Especially in times when it was quieter in the unit. So yeah, I think we were quite lucky to be able to get that
Mm-hmm.
access and be able to take advantage of it, really, because like I said, I think it did really help us to accept and understand what was going on and what had happened.
That's good because here in the States, not too well, it varies in different hospitals, but some hospitals offer therapy, some do not. I wasn't offered therapy, and to hear about it now on the back end, I'm like, I think that should be part of every care plan when you're in a NICU. As NICU parents, like I think everybody should have a therapist as part of their care team or a counselor as a part of their care team because it's a very stressful process. And it's hard to navigate what you're experiencing or even identify if you're battling with depression or on the brink of depression because you don't know if you never experienced it. I think having a therapist will help you identify some certain triggers and you know be able to navigate that process in a better light. I spoke to another NICU dad previously, and he just launched a book that he's getting ready. Well, he's in the process of launching a book, but he's bringing comedy to the NICU, which most people don't think to do that because nothing's funny
Yeah,
about the NICU, right?
no, exactly.
But to have a book to read to your baby while you're in the NICU that, can bring some laughter is was such a genius idea. And I was like, that was smart to do. I wish I had something like that when I was there because it's a hard process and it's so serious, but who would think to bring comedy to it, right? Um,
Exactly.
so I thought that was such a pretty cool idea. And I love that you're journaling and the fact that you've launched, your vision. I like to call it a ministry because you're helping other people in very hard times of life, but especially dads, because dads don't always get a voice, especially when it comes to parenting. When you think parenting, it's always about the mom, but it's a whole unit. It's the mom and the dad. So I love that you're out there really just being a voice and creating a platform for other dads. Where do you see your vision for Prim Dad UK?
Oh, that's a good one. Yeah, I think, like I said, when I first launched it, it was nothing more really than an outlet for myself, and it's only been, I think, about 7 or 8 months now since I even published the first post on there. So it's been quite a short period of time, but I've received far more visitors than I ever expected, and so many people commenting and sharing the stories that it does feel as though I've found a voice that can be there for other people who are going through something similar. So I think the vision for it is really just to carry on with that and try and be a resource for those people who like I was at that time, don't really know what to expect or what might happen, and they don't feel like there's enough help out there. So I'd like to be thought of as somebody that could provide um, that information, that resource. I've got in the pipeline, or in the pipeline, I guess we'll say, is a book of my own, actually, just more of a first person account of the experience itself of becoming a dad and that journey that it took me on. So watch this space on that one, I guess.
Let's go. I'm excited. I think it's so necessary because not too many dads are. I don't know if men seem to think like, telling their emotions or whatever makes them weak or whatever it is about men who don't like to tell how they feel about certain things. But I just love that you're out and you're being vocal and you're being a voice and you're being a leader in an area that is not pretty common. Like a lot of dads aren't being vocal about parenting. They're not being vocal about these special places like the NICU. So the fact that you're out there doing that and being a voice and being a face for it, I just applaud you. It's a very big step and it's a necessary step because I think you're going to draw other dads to just come out and be able to take the time to identify and process the NICU, not just to completely go through it, because there are some moments in the NICU where we want to cherish those moments. Like the first time you held your baby, it's like cherish that moment because you don't always, when you have a full term baby, you get to hold them as soon as they come out of the womb. But with the NICU babies, some of us have to wait 6 days, 2 weeks. So, think about the fact that you want to cherish that moment and experience what you're feeling and think about those things. So, having a book and having your platform, I think allows dads to really take the time to not just be on autopilot, but to really process and really enjoy the moments, even though they're hard.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree, definitely. I think, like you say, it's just about having that belief, I think, to share what was a difficult experience and just to reassure other people, I guess, that your voice counts and you shouldn't have to suffer alone. I know, like you said, that men feel like they can't really talk about these kind of things, these kind of emotional or psychological things that take place in their life, and you always feel as though they have to bottle it in, I guess. But
right.
I do think the conversation is changing and the attitudes are changing towards that. So to be able to be a part of that, I guess, is, I think, a good thing and something that I'm proud of.
I'm so happy for you. I almost think also experiencing this pandemic, this worldwide pandemic, is having people be a little more in tune with their emotional side and be in tune with being more appreciative and being more human. So I think it's a great time to really launch and to really break out the way that you are. And I'm so happy for you. And I'm excited to see what you're going to do. I'm excited to see other people that you're going to influence and impact. I'm just happy to see you guys really just breaking out and really um, going forth. But yeah,
Yeah.
so how is she doing today?
Yeah, she's good. She's good.
Oh, good, good, good.
Yeah, she's coping well. It's like I said, it was a journey for both of us, and I think it did affect her very, very badly as well.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was the sort of the way that I had to deal with it was almost in trying to help her get through it as well, and probably vice versa. She wanted to help me get through the situation as well, but also take care of herself. So yeah, I'm pleased to say we've come out of it the other side, I think, and we're doing well. We're a happy family most of the time.
I'm glad. I'm so glad. What are her thoughts about, what you're doing, your platform, and how does she feel about you being a voice for other dads?
Yeah, she's proud of it. She's proud of me, I think, for speaking out and sharing what I went through. I think historically in our relationship, I've maybe been the type of person to keep feelings to myself because I don't want to burden other people. So I think, yeah, she's definitely somebody that's taught me how to be able to let go of my feelings and share them with people when the time's right. So yeah, she's really supportive, and Yeah, she's like I say, she's proud of what I've been doing. Sorry. Yeah, and like I say, she just supports me. So yeah, I'm happy. I'm with the right person.
I love it. I love it. But I just thank you so much for sharing and telling your story and just what you're doing for other dads. It's pretty incredible. Are you affiliated with any hospital organizations? Are you connected to any?
No, not sort of affiliations really. I do like to we kind of follow the nurseries that the hospitals, sorry, that the boys were treated at, and I kind of make a charitable contribution to them as well
Mhm.
on a monthly basis. It's small, but it's something that I've done since the boys were first in the hospital. So, just think it's a way of sort of giving back to that institution, really, and as a way of thanking them for what they did. And at the end of the day, they saved our sons. So it's probably the least I can do. But definitely, when I'm talking and when I'm writing, I like to shout them out and give them the praise that they're due, because the NHS that we have here in the UK is an amazing thing. We're very fortunate to
Now,
have
what is
access.
NHS?
So the NHS is the National Health Service, and effectively it means that we have access to free healthcare, and it's paid for through our taxes. But I
Oh,
know in
wow.
the States you guys have sort of big medical bills
Oh, yeah, we
and that
do.
kind of thing. So yeah, exactly. So we're really fortunate here that we were able to walk out of the NICU with two twin boys, and it didn't cost us a penny. So it's an amazing thing. So yeah, that's the one thing I always like to do, is look back and thank the NHS and the amazing people that work in it.
Wow, you brought up an amazing point. I did not know that. So I was speaking to a UK mom. We didn't get to record her show, but she did mention the fact that you guys have that kind of health system there. I'm totally shocked.
Yeah.
So you don't pay like a monthly fee from your employer. You just from your taxes you get free healthcare?
Yes, that's right. Yeah, so we obviously get taxed on our salary, but that goes to various things, and one of those is the NHS, which yeah, like I say, just entitles us to free healthcare. So it's all funded that way. I think it's an amazing thing, really, when you look at like you say yourself, you're quite shocked there that we didn't have to pay anything, and I can't
Yeah.
imagine the additional stress that would have brought, really, because it's a stressful enough time. So having to think about money and paying bills at the same time would have been just another layer of stress, I think. So yeah, like I say, we're really thankful to be able to have access to that at any time we need it.
That's incredible. So both my children were in the NICU, but they're not twins. My daughter was born, 1 pound 6 ounces. So she spent 4 months in the NICU. We had a I want to say most of it was covered, but we still pay a hefty fee out of our
Yeah.
paychecks every pay period. So I was paying, I want to say about $1,000 a month for health insurance.
Wow.
And in addition to that, my employer is paying a portion of that as well. So that's what I paid out of pocket a month, but my employer is also paying. But then we still pay a bill after the fact. So then my son, he was born with Hirschsprung's disease, where a portion of his colon wasn't working. He was born full term, but he had to go have surgery at 5 days old.
Right.
10 days old. He had to go have surgery. So I got a hefty bill from that. So it's like you're experiencing the NICU twice and you pay so much money for insurance on a monthly basis anyway, but then still have a bill. And it's like you guys got it for free. Like that is incredible.
Yeah.
That is such a blessing too. So are your taxes higher there for the insurance or do you just pay normal taxes?
I'm not really sure how it compares, but I think it's just, yeah, I think it's normal. I think
Wow.
it's heavily subsidized by the government as well.
That definitely
Um,
alleviates a lot of stress on your family to not have that bill
Definitely, and
every
I
month.
think I think a lot of people in this country do take that for granted as well, and just accept that it's there because they've never known anything different. But my wife's friend, lives over in the States now, and she had a baby there, and she was sort of telling my wife how much it had cost. And we were like, what?
Exactly.
we kind of just like, how is that possible? But yeah, I guess it's just different policies and different governments and the way that things are run differently in the two countries. But we are very lucky to have that. I do appreciate that.
So let me throw in another kicker for you. Not only do we have to pay for monthly insurance, we pay monthly or out of our pay period, we pay.
Yeah.
We get bills because if you have a deductible, you get a bill. But in our taxes as well. So if you don't have a health insurance plan for the whole year, for every month that you didn't have health insurance, you're being taxed on it or charged a fee on it when you pay your taxes at the end of the year. Can you believe it?
Oh wow!
I'm
Right.
just like, this is sucking us dry over here.
Yeah.
So I'm
Wow, that's
amazed, like,
incredible.
America, what are you doing to us?
Yeah, definitely.
Like if it's working in other countries, why can't we have it here? So you definitely just said shed some incredible light on the healthcare system and the differences in other countries because we're not getting the same thing. And how would you say like the state of the technology? Is it still like good quality technology, like state of the art technology?
I think that's where probably the countries differ again. I think although we are seeing kind of updates in many areas, and I think the NICU is one of the leading areas. I think other places in the healthcare system are quite antiquated and a little bit dated. So I think that maybe because it's not paid for by
Mm-hmm.
like in the same way as you guys pay for your healthcare. I think that maybe where it does suffer. There's often shortages of staff as well. I don't think the staff are paid particularly well for what they do. So
Mm-hmm.
it's not they work in long hours and they're doing an incredible job, but it's not particularly well paid. So I think there are quite a lot of staff shortages, and we often hear stories of hospitals sort of running out of beds and that kind of thing during the winter when the flu season's around. So
Mm-hmm.
it is a good thing that we don't have to pay, but I think I'll not go too political, but I think the government that we have at the moment have grossly underfunded it really, and
Mm-hmm.
um, yeah, I think it probably has suffered for that. But definitely the NICU wards that we were on were well funded, and especially the one at our local hospital, I think is the most well funded department in that hospital. It has a lot of charitable donations as well, which helps to buy new equipment and that kind of thing. So
Mm-hmm.
again, we're fortunate that we were able to benefit from that kind of thing.
I have to say you're that's the funny thing because I spoke to a mom. She was actually in the military and she was in the UK. She's from the United States, but she was stationed in the UK. And she
Okay.
did say, she was like, I was in one part of the, she said, I was in one part of the hospital and they literally had me on like a metal bed and the walls, the paint was chipping everywhere. She said, but when they brought her to the NICU, she was like, I felt like I was in the future because she was like, the technology was just so advanced. And this was 13 years ago. And she was
Yeah.
like, it was like night and day. She said, from like the regular labor and delivery part of the hospital to the NICU, she was like, it was so advanced. So I would have to say, if my money had to go anywhere, I would want it to go to the NICU to
Yeah, I
make sure
think
that
so.
my
Yeah.
baby survives, right? To make sure you have the right technology to have these tiny little babies survive. So that's actually pretty interesting to know that they do put a lot of money into the NICU system there, which is really good. Do they have organizations there? So, like here in the States, we have the March of Dimes, and the March of Dimes is a big organization that supports a lot of families in the hospitals, primarily a lot with NICU families. And they help like financially, they help with just a lot of support the March of Dimes has. So do they have organizations like that in the UK that support NICU families or medical fragile families?
Yes, we have quite a few sort of charitable organisations, and the biggest one is called Bliss, and that's a specialist. I think it's the leading neonatal charity in the UK.
You said Bliss?
Bliss, yeah, that's right.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, in the hospital and in the NICU wards, they had sort of a lot of their information and booklets there for parents to read, which was helpful, and they have a website where it also has information there, but I think they also do offer financial support to sort of low income families as well, which is obviously really helpful. And they've got information around how people can apply for financial support. In some cases, parents are having to travel from out of town into a city to visit their own children. So covering things like transport costs and that kind of thing. It's something that not everybody thinks about, but yeah, like I say, there are charities there that do that, and there are also much smaller organisations as well. So we received a box for both boys, which was donated by a local charity, and they'd had a NICU baby that sadly passed away, and they'd sort of set this charity up in that child's memory, and sent almost like a survival pack for the parents. It had chocolate and energy drinks and that kind of thing in it, but it also had and it also had like small baby clothes, like really tiny premature baby clothes, which was really cute, I guess.
I love
so yeah, you do get the smaller ones that are almost just rely on donations from the general public as well, which is nice.
I love it. Those little things go a long way, those little baskets. And we have here the March of Dimes. And then in certain areas, like you said, there's the smaller charitable organizations. But another company we worked with was the Tiny Miracles Foundation. And every year they come together, a lot of volunteers come together and they make these beautiful blankets. So my daughter, she has one. It's like one of these big fleece like blankets, but it's, she still has it. She's getting ready to be 9, but she still has it. So those little things just help you it helps, shine some light in the NICU, which we definitely appreciate. But I thank you so very much for sharing with us today and sharing just such a different perspective of what people feel, because not a lot of people admit to some of the things that you admitted to today. And I'm so glad that you were open enough to share exactly how you felt and being very transparent with us today. And I really appreciate you. Do you want to say how people can follow your story and follow your ministry or your organization on social media?
Yes, sure. So my website is premdad.co.uk, and I'm mainly on Instagram, which is at premdad_UK, and on Twitter as well. That's at premdad_UK on there as well. So yeah, I kind of try and share sort of images and videos from the journey itself, and I also use that to share the blog entries and like you say, the journals and that kind of thing. So yeah, hopefully see some new faces and connect with some new people. But it's been great to share my story, and thank you for inviting me on. It's been great to talk to you about it.
Absolutely. And you also do some talks yourself, right? On some Instagram lives?
Yes, I've joined a couple of people on Instagram lives. I've not hosted any myself yet, but I've hooked up with a couple of people on there. It's been good, again, just to talk about it and try and raise that awareness. So maybe that's something I'll look to do more of in the future. And yeah, this kind of thing with the podcasts as well is it's really cool. Just another way to reach people and
absolutely
share that story and share the experience is really good.
I hope you do the podcast. Do it. And
Seems
would you
like the thing
offer
to do.
any advice to the NICU dads out there? Some words of encouragement?
I think the thing I would say is that don't be afraid to talk about how you feel and seek help. It is a difficult time, a really stressful experience, and like I said earlier, your feelings are valid. There's no shame in feeling that it's a difficult thing. It's almost hard because you feel that you should be happy because you've got a newborn, but really it's the opposite because you're concerned that newborn's in hospital and not doing very well. So I think the main thing for me is just don't be afraid to talk about your feelings and don't feel bad that you're not walking around with a smile on your face. I think it is a hard thing, but medicine's advanced a lot in recent years, so the odds hopefully are in your favor. And if you're one of the fortunate ones like me, then it's something that you can look back on eventually and think, wow, how did I get through that?
Right. Well, I thank you once again for joining us, and I thank you all for tuning in and listening to another episode of NICU Stories with our very special guest, Prim UK Dad, or Prim Dad UK, Carl. Thank you again, Carl, and we so appreciate you here. Have a good night, everyone.